my subject is porting software to BSD, and actually I wanted to have it kind of like a roundtable discussion, because there's 3 BSD people here, and I don't know if people from other BSDs are here, to discuss what kind of problems you get when you port packages or port software to BSD, to whatever BSD. Gabor told me that I shouldn't assume that you know about package source much, so I can also hold a talk what the package source package looks like. But as I said, I'd prefer a discussion, so what do you think?
So the question is, are you curious about the details of package source, or everybody knows package source? Raise your hands, who knows package source? Okay, I think you can just introduce okay. Some of the aspects. I mean, you don't have to be so specific.
Okay. So under this assumption that you don't know package source, I wanted to show some stuff that I think is particular to package source compared to ports. But I don't know that much about ports because I only have talks about it. So
don't worry, there are FreeBSD developers.
They will correct me, I guess. So one big difference is that package source is supposed to run on many different operating systems, not only NetBSD. Of course, it started on NetBSD, but it's now the default packaging system for Dragonfly BSD. It's supposed to be the default packaging system for Mir BSD, and it's also used by people on Solaris frequently, and some other operating systems. People have also used it, like HBUX or Haiku was also looking at making it its packaging system. So for the packaging infrastructure is based on ports, so it's based on make files, and not all makes support all features that we use, so there's a bootstrap process. You can go to a new system, run a script that comes with package source that bootstraps itself, so you need a compiler, of course, but it brings its own make. It installs the package tools, and yeah, then you're ready to go to build packages or install them. You can also run this on a system where you don't have root privileges. If you choose a location where you can write, for example, your home directory. So you could go on your favorite web hosting platform and install package source there and just well, wait a long time probably because you won't have much CPU. But in principle, just compile your own software there and use it. Then we've also abstracted out the tools infrastructure because some packages want to use Flex or GNU make or stuff like that. So since this is very common, it's just one line in a make file where it says use tools, and then you say which tools you need. And the infrastructure knows about the operating system if it provides a tool that's new enough, or if it doesn't, it will install the package from package source. And I think the biggest difference to all other packaging systems I know about is BuildLink. It's BuildLink 3. There was 1 and 2, but the 3 is very stable. We've had it for many years now. And BuildLink helps making building packages reproducible under different circumstances. So you have the idea is that independent of what is already installed on the system, a package will only build against those dependencies which you choose. So even if you have Postgres and MySQL and whatever installed, it will only find the Postgres if you tell it to only find Postgres. And how it does that is that it has its own include paths, its own library paths in a work directory where the package is compiled. And the compiler is not the real compiler from the system, but it's a wrapper script. And this wrapper script stops the compiler from looking in the wrong places, the default places, and it tells it to just look in the BuildLink directories. So this way, the installed software is hidden and only the software that is supposed to be found is found. It's not foolproof, of course. For example, CMake is very smart and knows that the packaging system is in user package and just stats files there. So sometimes you have to tell CMake to not do that, but for configure, it works all the time. So I chose a rather simple port package to show what it usually looks like. So basically it's makefiles and it's usually declarative. You just give variables and give them some names. So this is for the eSound package. I do have a pointer. Okay. So what do you see? We define the name, and this is used to create it so it knows what file to look for. So it's eSound 0241, and it uses this dist file with the type PC2 extension. Well, okay, I think if I show you every line, it doesn't make much sense. There's some variables where mirrors are defined for GNOME, for example, that we just tell, well, it's on the GNOME servers, and under this path you can find it. And then we define who's the maintainer is, where package source users actually means no particular maintainer or no maintainer, how you want to see it. We have a homepage, a comment that is used as a description, and we also define the license for people who care about it. The installation types, that's been only done for a few hundred packages. The idea is that you have some people want to have a software installed, the same software but multiple versions, and that's a really hard problem. And of course you can do it in particular cases. You can just fix the paths. We have some packages where we install one version into user lib, I don't know, version 02, and the other one goes into includes directly. But the general solution is to have separate prefixes, separate installation prefixes for every single package, and then just link the packages into the default location. So you can have user package eSound 0241, user package eSound 0242, whatever, and the latest version or whatever you choose is linked into user package directly. Is that clear? Yeah, okay. But even if you have the infrastructure and it exists, and I think it works, but I haven't ever used it myself, you have to fix every package manually. I guess nowadays it's better because we've nearly finished the switch to staged installs, as you called it. So package source has about 10,000 packages, and we needed 2 years, so I thought your 1 year is very short. But anyway, you'll see. There's staged installation means that the make install step doesn't really install into user package, but it installs somewhere below the work directory into testdir user package, and then completely. And whatever is installed there is put into a binary package, and then you install the binary package. And this way you avoid many problems. For example, conflicting packages you can easily find out before, because the makefile doesn't write the user package, so it cannot overwrite your previous package, which has the same file included, but you just write into testdir. The package is installed, and the package tools are smart enough to check if they would overwrite files. So I just copied the file verbatim, so I am not going to talk about every line is here, but you see this is what they typically look like. There's some support for libtool, some particular support, because libtool is weird. There's support for package config files, because we have to fix paths inside them sometimes, so we have infrastructure for that. We have infrastructure also for example files. So the default for a package is that you install your configuration files into share examples and the name of the package, and then say where this file is supposed to go. So this is here is 2 lines. This is just a variable. You don't need this. But this line is the important one. It says this file should go there. And when a package is installed, then the package tools know this and they look at that location. And if they see there's a file there, they don't touch it and tell you, well, we would have installed a config file there, but there was already one, so take a look. And if there's none there, it's installed. And on deinstallation, the reverse process happens. If the file is compared against the one in examples, and if you didn't change it, it's just deleted because, well, it was the default config, you don't need it. If it is changed, it stays. So this way updates, you have a problem if the config file syntax changes or if you're missing config file parameters that are not required, but well, nobody can do that for you. And at the bottom, the last lines in the make file is always including the infrastructure, and before that you include a built-link file. That's how you get dependencies for libraries. We have depends line too, but if you want to use built-in infrastructure, you include this file. It's very suitable. This package also has options, so I don't know if you looked at the package source options when you created. Okay, the FreeBSD options. It looks different, and it goes into more detail what happens if you want to, as a package maintainer, really support an option. So one thing Jon didn't mention is that, I don't know if it's supported in FreeBSD ports now, but you can set options globally. You can say, well, in general, I always want Postgres. And you can send options particularly for a package. And the first line here says what the name of the variable is that you want to set for this package. So if you want to set options particularly for eSound, then you set package options.eSound equals inet6. And you put all your options you put into the etc mk.conf file. So for example, you could put into your mk.conf file package options no.eSound, just general, equals inet6. You always want inet6. But for eSound, you don't want it, so you can write package options.eSound minus inet6. So you can turn off option or turn on or off options for all packages. And it's not explicit that you don't need to explicitly specify that you don't support global options. If it's if it's not supported by a package and it's not in the package options.eSound variable, then it's just ignored. But this is minor differences. I've just mentioned it because we were talking about the same topic. Then the infrastructures for options is included, and afterwards you can check if this option is set or not, and then depending on that, for example here, change the configure arguments. Since I wanted to talk about porting software, I show a patch. It's not a really porting a patch, but it shows what patches we do for adapting packages for package source. For this one is for the example I had before for config files. We changed the default path where it installs its config file. And it's just the structure is at the top, a comment what it's supposed to do, and then the patch itself. If this would be a patch which is supposed to go upstream, then you're supposed to add the upstream bug report or URL in the comment section, so that other people know where to look if a patch has been applied, or if there's discussion about applying it, or if it's just ignored. There's a checksum file which looks like this. Well, it's cut off, but so that we have checksums for the dist files and for the patches. So mostly because sometimes people have conflicts in their patches, and this way they see it. because if the checksums don't match, we don't apply the patches. We also check if what the package is supposed to install, so we can compare it. And also since we have staged installs, we can check if the package was compiled correctly. Well, some checks we can do. Since the plist says what files are supposed to be there, and the test tier contains only the files that the package installed. So if all these files are there, that's fine. If there are too many files, you get an error. If there are too little files, you get an error. And this way, many breakages are found out earlier than they would be otherwise. So, any questions about package source or as related to the talk? Of course, I'm happy to answer any questions afterwards as well.
I don't know if you have some similar system like Tinderbox for FreeBSD.
That's the question. Okay.
It's basically.
I know what Tinderbox is.
Okay. Then, do you have some similar system like?
So for
Tinderboxes?
For building binary packages, we have a bulk build infrastructure.
So I know there is someone that's working on adapting the Tinderbox for PPGs in SRC.
Well, there's two substracts. The one is there's a Tinderbox port for Dragonfly, which is included in package source. So it says already the infrastructure changes that are necessary for package source compared to ports, but it only has the operating system-specific changes for Dragonfly, not for NetBSD. But the idea that you build the packages, we have change root software to build packages. It's just not called Tinderbox.
Yeah, but Tinderboxes on FreeBSD are also commonly used for verifying and checking a lot of things that you mentioned that you already do in the infrastructure. And on FreeBSD we have, let's say, a safety net, that's the Tinderbox in usual cases, where we find also a lot of bugs that the infrastructure currently, at least, it doesn't check for.
There are some people who do regular bulk builds. A bulk build is just building every package in package source. And reports of the bulk builds are on the net. But there's no such nice things as your automatic emails to the last commit or stuff like that. That doesn't happen yet.
Okay.
But there are automatic builds and you get the failure reports.
Yeah, so pretty much what is being done on pointing at brands, but not what the activity was and will be shortly. I mean, for sure, going public, we'll be doing it again.
So,
Okay.
not really. Oh, sorry, let's not deviate in the talk.
Okay. So what kind of issues do you usually see when porting software to BSD? I made 3 points. One is the code issues. Some people think Linux is everything, or some think it's just the Unix. So you see some code that only compiles on Linux for various reasons. Sometimes because it uses APIs that are POSIX extensions, let's call it. Sometimes because they use kernel mod. Okay, well, if they have kernel changes, then it's really hard to port usually the software. But usually it's interface stuff or missing dependencies perhaps sometimes. Missing dependencies, I guess, in FreeBSD with 20,000 ports, there's not many, even in package source. Usually everything is packaged already that you want to use. I think I have a slide for this. Yeah. Okay. So, or missing headers, for example. Yeah, I think I talked about this. So sometimes it's easy to fix stuff by just looking at other people, what they've done. I think the most help is it for security fixes, because usually there's one or the other Linux vendor who has a patch available rather quickly. Sometimes for portability, it's worth a look at the FreeBSD ports tree. I've not looked at OpenBSD much, but perhaps also there. Of course, more ideal it would be if this stuff would always get sent upstream. But I've only started this 2 years ago for my packages, so I won't kill anyone if he doesn't do it in his first 8 years. But that's what I would prefer. Also, upstream has different behavior well, the first thing is everyone can send a problem report. They say, okay, it doesn't compile, here's what it says. And many upstreams say, okay, well, I don't have BSD, send me a patch. So the next thing is you send a patch, or if you try to find out what it's supposed to do and what it doesn't do, and then if you really manage, you try to send a patch. And then there's also different reactions, like nothing. Sometimes I really get a reaction in less than a day, and it says, well, it's applied, thank you. But in between that, there's all kinds of behaviors. I have patches applied after many years. Sometimes they get stuck in a bug tracking, and after, I don't know, when they get a new release, 5 years later, they look at all the bugs and close it. Or just apply it. So it all happens.
Sorry, there's a comment.
Yeah.
I think the biggest problem so far is when upstream doesn't like your patch and wants you to do a lot of work on your patch first.
Yeah.
Especially after ignoring it for many months. There's a bug in the Mozilla bug tracker for supporting Dragonfly with Firefox. I think it was filed against Firefox 0.8 or 0.7, so it's around 10 years old nowadays, and they ignored it for years. They automatically closed it at some point because nothing happened on this. The reaction was, well, you still need it. And then there was, oh, but you should submit patches for those 20 different sub-projects we all have in the Mozilla tar files. And reactions like that are not very helpful, but you'll see them quite a lot with bigger projects.
Yeah, also there's this issue that it's not really clear if you are the software author and you're interested in solving this particular problem, and someone comes and says, well, it doesn't work on I have never heard of this operating system. There's all kinds of stances you can take. You can say, well, I want to support all my users. If you have a patch, I'll apply it if it doesn't break anything for me. And there's people who say, well, make it perfect. It has to conform to all my ideas, what my code looks like, before I even look at it really. And it's a bit of the issue, whose problem is it? And some people think it's your problem because it's your operating system, and some people think it's your problem because it's your software. And yeah, so actually I want to have some feedback of what kind of reactions you get if you report FreeBSD problems upstream.
And the way depends on upstream and the way you handle. But for example, right now most of the KDA patches go very fast in the tree. For Chrome, the same. ZFS, as far as I know, they're okay. It's not ports, but it's also porting. So yeah.
For example, I have very good experiences with the PNG developers. Usually if I send them anything, even if a question, I get a reply very quickly. There's some very motivated people there.
Well,
but for example,
we're going to find out more about this subject when we're going to have all those, something like 16,000 of ports, patches for the FreeBSD 10 problem submitted upstream. So, well, they're going to be less because the new libtool takes care of some of the problem, but that will actually give us very nice data, you know, about it.
So I'm looking forward to your talk next year, what the result was. Also, I've also tried that when I've got one patch accepted, because, for example, I fixed a lot of ping problems, that I followed up with all the patches in package source immediately if they got a reply. Because sometimes if people are already talking with you, it makes next patches much quicker.
I have a comment. So in the ideal case, you also have commit rights to the given project, so you don't have to ask anybody to commit the changes. You can just provide the support immediately. I mean, that's the optimal case, of course.
Of course, yes. Yeah. So why do you have commit rights?
Nothing else. I don't have other commit rights. I just mentioned that if it would have, I could commit it. Sometimes it happened, for example, with LibreOffice.
Yeah, I think
OpenBSD guy who's working on it, Robert Nagy, who also have a commit access to the LibreOffice repository, so he can fix up the BSD compatibility as soon as he wants. So that's very good.
LibreOffice are very free with their commit bits, and I think it's a very good idea. So just a short overview. My experiences with GNOME are very different because GNOME seems to have many different maintainers who are also all very responsible just for their program. At least that's a few exceptions. And for some programs it was really easy. I sent the PR and it was immediately accepted. For others, they want the perfect patch, and even then they are not sure if they apply it this year or next year. So I'm for sending patches upstream. For GNOME it's easy. I have an account. I always do it, but I don't expect much of it. I don't know if FreeBSD is luckier in this case. Any GNOME packages here? Tell me about it.
Why do we need to support other operating systems involved? So the developers of GNOME officially spread stuff like this. They say maybe some other whatever new version.
It's okay, I don't like GNOME.
Well, I was of this opinion also, but I tried with KDE. KDE3 was working quite well, but for 4 it was, I don't know, there seemed to be lots of patches necessary to make it work well, and not all of them are even there yet. And I personally have given up trying to find even a place where to put the patch because it's too big for me, but yeah. How good is KDE working on FreeBSD?
So the time is up.
The time's up, okay.
That was all. Thank you for your presentation and for questions.